A small village named Tison of the Pathervia Empire witnesses the birth of a child named Sinbad to the ex-soldier Badr and his loving wife, Esra. Sinbad's birth comes with a message spread throughout the world and felt by every mage that his singularity is born that day. A colorful surge is spread throughout the rukh, alarming the whole world that the special child called the Child of Destiny has arrived to rule the seven seas. The Empire of Pathervia had expanded its territory, and to celebrate their victory, soldiers from the Empire had visited Badr to award him for his services in the war, to which he refused, saying that he only cares about being a fisherman. Fast forward to a few years later, things changed for the Empire a bit, and Pathervia had gotten into a war with Reincarnated Empire. Badr was enjoying his usual time fishing at the sea, when some villagers told him to fight in the war for them out of their hunger of regaining wealth. Badr politely rejected, but this behavior made Sinbad sad, and later that night he left early to fetch water from the well after dinner. Sinbad returned with the same man shown to be chased by the army earlier, and without knowing anything, Sinbad's family nursed him back to health. The man revealed his name to be Darius, a merchant. Darius was being served food later when soldiers from the army arrived at Sinbad's place asking for a spy. Darius quickly killed the soldiers and took Sinbad hostage. Esra kept pleading to the villagers to help, but they turned their eyes away before Badr arrived and started to beg for Sinbad's life. He tried to convince Darius into ditching the Reincarnated Empire, which infuriated him, and Badr used the opportunity to stab him, securing Sinbad. The army used this opportunity to force Badr into fighting the war after torturing him, and seeing the behavior of the villagers towards his family, Badr revealed his condition to leave them stunned after looking at what war does to people. Badr left and told Sinbad to be the man in the future and take good care of his mother. The tragic news of Badr's death arrived at the village along with his sword. A few years passed, and Sinbad had turned into a promising young man who had a thing for adventures. Around the same time, things changed around the world, and huge structures called dungeons appeared in the whole world. A dungeon also appeared in the Pathervia Empire, and around 10,000 soldiers had died trying to conquer it. Sinbad arrives at the port after finishing another adventure, and he comes across some girls selling fruits who were getting bothered by thugs. Sinbad gave the thugs a beating, and the girls offered him some fruits as a way of thanking him. A strange man came out of one of the fruit barrels and later joined Sinbad on his way back to the village. The man revealed his name to be Yunnan, and Sinbad took him back to his place. At Sinbad's place, it is revealed that Esra had gotten really sick, and the next morning, when Sinbad left for something, she told Yunnan about how she's being a hindrance to Sinbad and his potential. An old woman from the village broke the news of Sinbad being beaten up by the army for not joining them in raiding the dungeon. The army's captain, Dragul, tried to force Sinbad but later went back after some crowd pressure. Sinbad was putting bandages on his wound when he was approached by Yunnan, who had seen potential in him and told him to get the dungeon's power for himself before the army. The army was preparing for a dungeon raid themselves, led by Dragul, when Sinbad pulled up on them, declaring his intention of not letting the army take the power. Sinbad got the final push he needed back at home from his mother, when she encouraged him to go on the adventure and not restrain himself because of her after giving him his father's sword. Sinbad charges into the dungeon followed by Dragul and his troops to find out a sight that he had never seen before. The dungeon had a completely different landscape and strange beasts or dragons. Dragul's troops were evenly shocked upon this sight but weren't allowed to think much when the dragons cleared the whole squadron one by one, leaving Dragul behind. Dragul was saved by Sinbad from a dragon, and the two later formed an alliance while taking shelter around a cave. Sinbad decided to change Dragul's long name to Drakon, just to hilariously annoy him. We might as well call him that too for the rest of the story. The two came across a giant door behind a dragon's den, and Drakon recklessly charged ahead to open the door after beating some small mobs. Drakon almost gave up on life after the guardian dragon pulled up on him, but was saved and later brought to the senses by Sinbad. Sinbad showed his promising skills to Drakon by utilizing the environment and killing the dragon, acquiring 2 orbs to open the giant door. The two continued their journey fighting mobs and finally came across the treasure room where the Jinn of Lightning, Baal, spawned after Sinbad rubbed on a lamp and asked them to decide upon receiving the power. Both of them had their reasons for wanting the power and decided to have a duel. Sinbad won the duel and received the power of Baal on his sword, making the whole dungeon disappear. The army waiting outside demanded Sinbad to submit the rewards to the Empire, but Sinbad used his new powers and a little help from Yunnan, who again spawned from nowhere, to get the treasure back to his village. When he came back, sad news welcomed Sinbad. Esra had passed away in his hands. Sinbad decided to keep his head up and left for an adventure in the sea, this time to conquer the world. Two blue-haired people are fighting a water dragon in the ocean when the girl falls out of the boat, causing a guy to jump in to save her. The two are in serious danger before Sinbad arrives and smokes the dragon with his lightning power, leaving the guy in shock. The three travel to the land, and while eating, the two reveal themselves as siblings to Sinbad, named Hina-Ho-Ho and Pipirika. They reveal to be the residents of Imuchak village nearby, and Sinbad requests to visit their village as his first step in conquering the world. Pipirika has mistaken her brother for defeating the monster, and upon their arrival at the village, their father arranged a feast to congratulate Hina-Ho-Ho for finally becoming a warrior while not being the most hospitable to Sinbad. Kinda expected. Hina-Ho-Ho's father explains how there is a dungeon near the village and how he wants Hina-Ho-Ho to conquer it with some troops, making Sinbad warn them about the danger that comes with it. Sinbad revealed himself as a conqueror of the dungeon, providing his point, and Hina-Ho-Ho's father warmed up to him. Back in the Empire, Drakon was given another chance and a group of assassins to kill Sinbad. Drakon sends the assassins and moves to conquer the Imuchak dungeon himself with a mage, Fallon. After enjoying the feast, Sinbad gets attacked by an assassin in his sleep, who gets captured by him, but later escapes with the help of his crew after Sinbad questions him. The whole development had gotten to Hina-Ho-Ho's head, and he decided to hit the dungeon alone while Sinbad followed up on him, assuring Pipirika to save her brother. Hina-Ho-Ho is left stunned after witnessing something like a completely different dimension after entering the dungeon. Hina-Ho-Ho thinks that the dungeon is nearly not as dangerous as he had thought, but later realizes that things are the other way around. He escapes insects that are trying to eat him and comes across the treasure room only to be interrupted by the guardian crab. Hina tries fighting the crab, but Drakon's group arrives and kills it to move forward to the treasure room. Hina gets angry and picks a fight with them, claiming the treasure as his own, and just when he is about to be dominated by the number difference, Sinbad arrives with his lightning power and fights alongside him. The two put up a good fight, but had to fall back due to being outnumbered. Hina takes Sinbad and swims away while Fallon tries to freeze the whole river with the two of them inside. The pair manage to survive, and Drakon's group reaches the treasure room where the Djinn of Confidence asks them about their desire for power. He reveals that Fallon was just a doll being controlled by the real one and crushes her out of hate. He gets bored of Drakon's reasoning and proposes a game of catching a cat. Sinbad arrives and later manipulates the rest to capture the cat himself. He delivers a solid speech to the rest, leaving them speechless with his charisma, and the appearance of Rukh solidifies his position as the king's vessel in Drakon's head. The story takes a turn, and the assassins suddenly start turning into a demon from the enhancer Fallon gave them earlier. Jin reveals that the assassins can be saved if the demon's heart is stabbed, and despite getting his sword knocked out of his hand by Fallon, Sinbad coordinates with Hina and Drakon to stab the demon's heart, freeing the assassins. To their dismay, the demon starts resurrecting from the assassin named Jabbar, and Sinbad uses his power of Baal to reach Jabbar in his memories and comfort him out of Fallon's powers. The day gets saved, and the rest of the guys declare Sinbad as their leader, swearing their loyalty to him and letting him attain the power. A fraction of Sinbad's power gets spread among his followers, and Drakon heads to report back to the Empire, while Sinbad and the rest head back to Imuchak to form trade relations and leave to further trade at the Rame Empire. The crew arrives at the port of the Empire, and without any knowledge of how to do business, starts to sell their goods, only to be stopped later by the guards of the town stating that they require a merchant's license to trade. A mysterious man buys everything from Sinbad only to sell it at a higher price at his own shop, lowering the morale of the crew. Sinbad keeps them positive and sends the rest of them back to the village to get more supplies, while he plans to learn more about trading. He approaches the same mysterious man who introduces himself as Harun, and Sinbad requests him to teach him about trade. Harun agrees to help after seeing Sinbad's dungeon powers, but demands an admission fee of 1,000 coins. Some time had passed, and Sinbad went viral in town for his amazing adventure stories, leaving people mesmerized. Harun notices this, and even though Sinbad hadn't collected the coins, he reveals himself as King Rashid's Elijah and gives Sinbad 1,000 coins himself. He told Sinbad the importance of a shop for trade, and told him to continue his speeches to raise money at theaters. The rest of the crew arrived and was astonished about the fact that Sinbad's shows were so famous that he had to hold them at the Colosseum. While the show was going on, Hina's son went missing in the crowd and was found out to be in the hands of a monster in the Colosseum when Jabbar went after him. Jabbar couldn't save him with his usual attacks, but managed to defeat the monster in the end using the power he received from following Sinbad. The show wraps up, and the crew gets shocked after finding out about the establishment of the Sindria trading company Sinbad made to trade worldwide. The crew reaches the Sassan kingdom after traveling through mountains and is amazed after looking at the land of purity for the first time. Since Sassan is famous for its richness in materials, Sinbad tried to trade with them, but the whole nation turned out to be a bit arrogant in this department, and just gave them a cold shoulder throughout. Sinbad tried to join the knights' ranks too, but had no luck in that department either. The crew headed to a hotel where they came across a guy named Mistras, the son of Darius. Sinbad had a chat with Mistras, and upon hearing Sinbad's stories, Mistras decides to ask his father about his decision to explore the world instead of joining the ranks of knights. Mistras confronted his father about his dream, but got shut down and decided to challenge his father to a duel since that was his only option to pursue his dream. Sinbad came across Yunnan, who was somehow in this town too, and he told Sinbad about Darius' past of conquering a dungeon as well. The duel between Darius and Mistras didn't go in Mistras' favor, and when he was about to be killed by his father, Sinbad pulled up at the location. Sinbad shows his power of Baal, and the duel starts between him and Darius. The fight goes evenly at the beginning, but Sinbad decides to up the level by showing his new technique to everyone. He uses the power of Baal to form an armor called Full Jinn Equip and takes Darius outside the fight arena along with his safety barrier. He takes Darius to a mountain and displays the sheer power he has by blowing up multiple mountains at once, leaving Darius terrified. He proposes the formation of trade relations with the Sassan nation, and Darius accepts, making him a comrade. Mistras decides to join Sinbad's crew and says his goodbyes to his father and little brother to leave for the Artemira kingdom next with the rest of them. The territory of Artemira consists of deep and beautiful valleys, and the majority of their population were women. The crew reaches the land and starts their journey towards the mainland through many hurdles and a long path to travel, giving us multiple hilarious interactions. The group reaches the mainland and immediately heads for the castle to meet the queen. The queen turned out to be Queen Mira, a fierce woman who despises men and refuses to form any diplomatic relations with them, thinking of them as inferior. Sinbad tried to charm the queen with his male attractiveness, but his plan backfired when Mira got the crew arrested, and except Hina threw the rest of them in the valley after taking their equipment to starve to death. Jabbar helped them survive in the deep valley with his experience in surviving on minimal resources by eating snakes. The group had almost forgotten their purpose of coming to Artemira and were busy enjoying their life in the Valley of the Dead when Mistras suddenly remembered that they wanted to get out of there. They devised the plan of using giant pieces of meat and hid inside the meat loaves, letting birds of the land take them out of the valley back to the mainland. They gathered their gear and Sinbad split up from the other two to confront Mira. Sinbad arrived at Mira's bedroom and enraged her after humiliating her. Mira used a similar jinn equip to Sinbad, while Sinbad took Baal's form to start a fierce fight. Baal's attack was nullified by Mira, and the fight was going in her favor when Sinbad pulled a different card and switched to the jinn equip Valifor. The fight continued, and even after a valiant fight from Mira, Sinbad managed to use his ice and flame manipulation Valifor to beat Mira at the end of the duel. The match finished and the crew had another meeting with Mira. She decided to form trade relations with Sinbad since she didn't want him to be his opponent. Sinbad revealed his true reason for conquering the world, being able to create a world without war and Mira explained about the legendary sorceress who was behind directing the king's vessels towards the dungeons to prove their worth. The contract of the trade between the Sindria Trading Company and Artemira was formed, and the queen herself came to say goodbye to Sinbad. She also introduced her daughters to him, and among the little girls, one of them took interest in Sinbad, giving him a feather as a parting gift. A diplomat woman from Artemira joined Sinbad's crew back to the company on one of Artemira's birds, and they left Artemira to get back to the business at the Sindria Trading Company. The company was thriving with business, with many new employees working for them. Everyone was working their hardest at the company, and that made Sinbad realize how far he has come from being an ordinary poor boy from a small village to a successful merchant. The whole company raises a glass to celebrate their success, wishing to witness what the future holds for Sinbad and his followers. The epic story of Sinbad continues with many more adventures to experience and the 7 seas to conquer.